Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to discuss a massive bombshell of a timeline update that Marvel just dropped on us in the last few days. I mean, this is a game changer for the multiverse saga. But that means to be able to discuss it, I will have to talk about some of the high-level plot points from entries in the multiverse saga, including the Marvels, which could be considered spoilers. So I just want to let you know that going in, but assuming you're okay, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have the February contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, and you might win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we also have the membership option in case you want to help me with my goal of doing this full-time one day. And one of the new perks is behind-the-scenes videos, including things such as how the videos are doing, who's watching them, how long are they watching them, etc. It's really interesting stuff. But no matter how you support the channel, it's all greatly appreciated. Liking videos, leaving comments, subscribing, it all goes a long way, so thank you so much. Okay, so what is going on here, right? So Marvel Entertainment did a tweet, and the tweet reads, "Ready for a movie marathon? Stream the entire MCU movie timeline and MCU complete timeline on Disney+." And then they provide a link. Now, this tweet was on February 9th. But these timelines, the movie timeline and the complete timeline, they've been on Disney Plus for like a week, maybe a week and a half. I mean, they're talking about these, right? The movie timeline and the complete timeline. Or at least I thought that's what they were talking about. They're actually talking about something else, which we'll get to in a second. But if you haven't seen these, the movie timeline is just the movies, right? And the complete timeline includes things like the one-shots. And if we scroll forward, it includes things like the TV shows. I Am Groot, the Netflix shows, etc. And again, that's been out there for a while, maybe a couple weeks. But if you notice, it's only season 1, which is a bummer because for these shows, you really need them broken up by season. Well, it turns out that if you follow the link on that tweet, then you get to an article published on February 8th that shows the complete timeline. But it's not the timeline on Disney+. Notice, we have I Am Groot, season 1 and season 2. They're broken apart. We have all of the seasons for the Netflix shows. So not just season 1, but they have the season 2s and the season 3s. And good news, they're exactly where they should be. This is where I've got them in my timeline. It's where the Wiki's got it on their timeline. I love this placement. Well done, Marvel. So that's awesome. And then they also have Loki season 2 and What If season 2. But they're at the very end of the timeline, even after the Marvels. What is going on? So my first thought was, okay, it's nice they did this article, nice they showed us some of the placements, but is this just some dude putting this together on his own? Because it looks kind of janky. Like look in the lower right-hand corner at Love and Thunder and then Werewolf by Night. And look real closely and you can see it was just cut and pasted in really quickly. It doesn't even line up. The Marvels down on the bottom row, that's the old icon, not the current icon. And the season 1 and season 2, it's the same image. Like if you look at I Am Groot, it's the same image for both, and they just slap the word season 1 and season 2 on there. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I appreciate that somebody did this, but I was like, is this really official? I don't know. I don't know whether I want to trust this, right? Well, Titan from the Discord server for this channel, wrote to Marvel.com. He said, "I am contacting Marvel Support on behalf of a devoted community of fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Many of us find great pleasure in mapping out the timeline to the month and even sometimes down to the day in the MCU. Recently, a new article was posted on Marvel.com website, and before we fully commit to using it for informative/entertainment purposes, we'd like to know if this timeline, including the season placements, is approved and endorsed by Marvel Studios." And he concludes, "Thank you." Well, I say thank you, Titan. Wow, that was a really well-written email. My goodness. Wow. But would we get a response? Yes, we would. Jay from Marvel Customer Care said, "Thanks for contacting Marvel. We can confirm the article we posted sorts all the shows and movies in the official order of our MCU timeline." And then goes on to say, "Thank you for your loyalty, blah, blah, blah." Wow. Well, thank you, Jay. That's really good news. Still though, is it ever going to show up on Disney Plus, or is it just going to be on some website? Because no one's going to see it there. It needs to be on the app. Well, another member of the Discord wrote out to Marvel.com. Protato wrote and got a response back on whether it's going to be on D+. Actually, yes, was the answer. It will be included on the D+ app, and we're looking into a specific date soon. And once it's launched, you'll be able to see it in the Marvel section of the app. Wow. And this Emling, I guess, I hope I'm saying that right, Emling V, replied again, saying, Thanks for the time provided. I was checking with my content team, but they told me at this time there's not a specific date. They just mentioned it will be soon. Wow, that is way cool. So that means we are indeed going to get a season by season breakdown on the Disney Plus timeline and the app. Nice. Very, very nice. Thank you, Potato, for finding that out for us. But was I going to do a video on it? I mean, it's still early in the game. It's not on D Plus yet. So I kind of thought, I'll wait a bit. Then I saw this post right on Instagram. So Comic Book did a post about that article, and it's splitting it up by season. But these comments are what really got me. So Barglebean and Fleef69, both of you two, thank you. You're so nice. Barglebean says, a bit of everything is about to have a field day with this. Yes. Yes, I have been. All week, so far this weekend, I've been just brainstorming, trying to figure this thing out. And then Barglebean finishes by saying he's going to lose his mind and leave no stone unturned with this new timeline. Okay, I have to do it now. In fact, I'm going to do this video in honor of Barglebean and Fleef. You two are so nice to leave those comments, and you spurred me on. I'm doing it. Okay, so then, what does this gap between season 1 and season 2 mean? What's going on here? Why is there a giant gap? Well, we know a couple things. We know that the epilogue, at least, to Loki season 2 has to be after Quantumania. You remember this scene, right, where they're talking about the Kang from Quantumania, right? I guess one of the Kangs, caused a little bit of a ruckus in the 616 adjacent realm. So clearly, at least this part of Loki season 2 has to be after Quantumania. My assumption is all the rest is right after season 1, but I agree. This part has to be after. We also know that What If season 2 has to be after Loki season 2 because the Watcher and Captain Carter, they visit the tree. I love that synergy between the two shows. Fantastic. But we have a problem, right? Because doesn't Loki season 2 pick up right after season 1? I mean, like, right after? Because Loki sees the statue of Kang. He starts booking it down the hallway. Mobius is chasing him. I don't know you, he's screaming. Loki jumps off the ledge, and, well, the series goes, right? But that is right after season 1. I mean, season 1 leads into season 2 immediately. So what are they trying to tell us? Why are these so late here in the timeline? Well, it is true that the practice so far has been that if an entry takes a long time to finish, it typically is shown when it ends. So why do I say that? Well, a classic example is Doctor Strange. Believe it or not, the beginning of Doctor Strange starts before Iron Fist, and then everything there happens, and then finally the end of Doctor Strange. Because the beginning of Doctor Strange is in February timeframe of 2016, and it ends in early 2017. So yeah, it literally goes a year. So another example, and notice it's placed then in the timeline at the end, where it actually ends. Another example is She-Hulk. Not as extreme necessarily, but if you take out the flashback episode, the first episode where she's training with Hulk, that's a flashback. But the main body of the show starts before Moon Knight and ends after Echo and right before Miss Marvel. So, okay, that would make sense then that they would put Loki season 2, at the end of the timeline, because we know it has to, at least the epilogue, the ending, has to be after Quantumania. But still, does that mean it stretches all the way back to Loki season 1? I mean, that's kind of crazy, right? Well, here's something interesting. The timeline book, which does include at least Loki season 1, shows it happening parallel to other events in the MCU. So notice during the time heist, they have the 2012 branch and 2013 and 2014 below it. But the 2012 branch, and Loki jumps out of that because he grabs the Tesseract, and he shows up now in his own branch, his own time stream. That time stream continues on while basically Endgame is going on. In fact, notice down at the bottom, you see scenes from Loki interwoven with scenes from Endgame during the time heist. So they're basically happening simultaneously. They're even continuing after the blip. So you could argue maybe during the time heist they would all be simultaneous, but no, the time heist is now done. Endgame is nearing to its the end of Endgame. Sorry, and still that branch across the top is happening. You see scenes from Loki, then scenes from Endgame's resolution, and then scenes from Loki, etc. In fact, the Loki little green timeline continues all the way up to WandaVision starting. So basically, as strange as it may seem, Loki, which is outside of time and space, is happening concurrent to things inside time and space. And yes, I know before you write a comment about that, it doesn't make any sense. But you know what? Shrinking down to the size of an ant and flying around with a magic hammer doesn't make any sense either. It's all fantasy. We just have to run with it. So for some reason, the things happening during Loki season 1, and I presume Loki season 2, are happening simultaneous to events in the MCU. So notice the green line just kind of stops here, but once the second timeline book comes out, it's going to continue because Loki's time stream continues. Okay, very, very interesting. Remember at the end of Loki season 1, we saw the sacred timeline fracturing, lines were going everywhere, and then suddenly we learned from Feige that basically Loki season 1 caused No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. I mean, this is Feige saying it, so you got to take this to the bank, right? He says, "He who remains is gone," and that allowed the spell to go wrong in Spider-Man No Way Home, which leads to the entire multiverse going quite mad in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, I took that to mean, sure, it's after Loki season 1, but because the 2 seasons are simultaneous, basically, it's also after season 2. I mean, season 1 started the mess, but I just assumed season 1 and season 2 were back to back. Because in season 2, the loom is still in place, right? At least mostly. It's not doing very well, but it's still in place. However, it is true that we do see these timelines all over the place. This is even from episode 1 of season 2. The timelines are going crazy, which is what we saw at the end of season 1. And then as the season went on, the loom kept getting nastier and nastier looking. And it is interesting. Somebody pointed out, I wish I could remember who you were. I would give you credit if I could remember it because this was several months ago. But they said, maybe, just maybe, that purple line there is the fracture in the sky that we saw in No Way Home. And I was like, I don't think so, because I think Loki season 1 and season 2 are happening back to back before anything else in the multiverse saga. But it's an interesting theory. And we may find out that theory is far more accurate than I would have guessed. So really good theory, whoever you were. Sorry, whoever you were. Leave it in the comments. Tell me who you were, and I'll apologize. Anyway, as Loki season 2 goes on, things get crazier and crazier and crazier. And then, of course, season 2 ends with Loki building the tree and destroying the loom and building his tree. All right, so let's look at what I thought the timeline was, at least until the latest bombshell. So what I'm doing here is the red line, everything below that is the sacred timeline / 616, the main, MCU. Everything above it is either outside of time and space, Loki, or multiverse, What If. So we have Avengers Endgame. Obviously out of that pops Loki season 1, and I was assuming season 2 and the tree. I was assuming they were all happening back to back, basically. And then we also see What If season 1 and season 2 back to back. The reason that works is every branch in both seasons of What If occur before Endgame. Like the branches originated in 2018 or earlier. Now, I know in season 2 we did have Wenwu, but the branch with Wenwu in it was from way before 2018. So technically speaking, this could work because every branch was, prior to Endgame. All right, so we know from the timeline book that after Loki season 1, we get WandaVision. We know from Kevin Feige that the result of Loki season 1, and I was arguing also season 2, is what gives us No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. We know that Quantumania then also has to occur. We know that the Marvels ultimately occurs. And then just to be thorough, the epilogue from Loki season 2, I thought that's when it occurred after Quantumania. So I kind of thought this was the multiversal timeline. I'm not so sure anymore. I think since they basically are saying Loki season 2 doesn't end until after the Marvels, then something's going on here. So I'm going to throw out a different timeline that I'm just betting this is what Feige is saying, because this really takes all his comments and fits everything together so well. All right, so we're back to Endgame, right? We loop off because Loki, bolts away and we get Loki season 1, but only season 1. That triggers What If, because that fits with the timeline right now. We know that WandaVision is after Avengers Endgame, but also after Loki season 1, so that all fits. Then I'm thinking what Feige is saying is that season 2 picks up right after season 1, but takes a long time to play out. Maybe because of the fact that Loki was going through those loops and trying to learn all the science so he could build his own multiplier, if you remember at one point. I don't know. But it seems like all this craziness with the loom, being fractured is happening. And that it truly is Loki season 1, not season 2 necessarily, but season 1 that makes Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home happen. Quantumania is a result. And in fact, this would explain how the Kang Council didn't see the tree. Because remember, they saw this. And it wasn't, and that's always kind of bugged me because I'm like, why didn't they see the tree if Loki season 2 is already done? I don't think it's done yet. So Quantumania is happening during this craziness, and even the Marvels, which again, I got to kind of give a minor plot point, but they create a rift and head to another universe. And the universe looks like it might be revisited during Deadpool. So you might be saying, well, wait, how can this happen? How, when the loom is in place, can we possibly have all of these multiversal things happening? Well, remember, somebody had theorized that as the loom was slowly fracturing, that's when there were cracks in it, and it was allowing Doctor Strange's spell to go wrong, America Chavez to jump in and out of the sacred timeline. It allowed the Kang Council at the end of Quantumania to see what was happening, and allowed in the Marvels the rift in space to be created. So basically, it seems like maybe the loom has been in place but falling apart, and then finally we get to the end of Loki season 2, which is now thoroughly after Quantumania, but also after the Marvels. We get his tree finally in place. So the tree is not in place until after all this has happened, and then of course we get What If season 2. Wild. So that would mean for certain that all of these multiverses have been out there the whole time. Toby's and Andrew's, 838, and my main man, Paint. Love me some Paint. So all of those universes, I've said this all along in all my videos, is He Who Remains did not destroy them. He created the loom to hide from them. And then when the loom was overloading, it allowed those cracks for things to start happening, again, like No Way Home, etc. And then finally, when Loki shut it down, or destroyed it, as the case may be, and created the tree, now it is exposed fully to the multiverse. But up to this point, it was just barely exposed. Boy, that makes so much more sense. So it does raise the question then, what about Deadpool? How is that going to fit into this? I'm going to guess that it's going to be after the tree was formed because I think it's, afterwards, because I do think the same universe that we see at the end of the Marvels is going to ultimately appear in Deadpool. But now, when Deadpool enters the MCU, the 616, he's going to be doing it, I guess, when there's a tree, right? Not during the loom, obviously. So, wow, very, very interesting. What do you think about this? Does this idea make sense? I will say this looks more like a timeline that Feige would create. He does try to go for simpler, more linear timelines. And what I was thinking before, you saw all those lines kind of going all over the place. This is just a nice, pretty flow. Nice, pretty flow. And by the way, I do realize my line coming out for the Marvels, that the Marvels happens after Quantumania. I just didn't want to make lines cross each other. I can't stand that. So it doesn't really matter when it's all, the time breaks are happening. But anyway, you get the idea. I think this is the timeline. Tell me what you think. And by the way, this also reinforces my point that I think the tree is definitely just 616 and its branches. It is not the Paint universe. There is no paint in the tree. I'm telling you, there's no paint in that tree. Anyway, just my theory. Let me know what you think. Love to hear your comments. If you don't agree, that's okay. Be brutal. Tell me what you think. All right. Don't forget, we have the February contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You might win a book or a steel book. And of course, we have the membership option. And lastly, I always have to bring up the Discord server because we had so many conversations about this very thing on the Discord. It's such a great server. But we also do all kinds of things like rewatches, Comic Club, MMORPG, DC retrospectives, other retrospectives beyond just DC. And then we have an iceberg for the server because it's been around for a year, 1,100 members, craziness. So love to have you join. I will leave a pinned comment that has an invite to the server so you can come out and be part of the conversation. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.